So now let's talk about data collection and deciding what data to collect. Collecting data is simply gathering information, but not all information, just the information that answers your questions. Again, we're emphasizing a systematic approach. After all, teachers collect data every time they write a score in the gradebook. This project is meant to raise your practice to the next level. Please don't do something you always do. Try at least one new measurement. The collecting of data we are looking at is to be connected with your strategies and the solutions you have chosen for your own action research. You will need to match your data collection methods with what you want to find out. You can use regular classroom activities, such as pair work, combined with a way to record the data, using a sheet for students to fill out or an observation checklist you can use. There are so many possibilities, and while the basic theory is the same across all research, with action research you can be a bit more creative. In fact, we do not want you to create complex, time-consuming data collection tools. The aim is to support you in successfully accomplishing a manageable first action research project within reasonable time constraints. Please note, you are trying to create a change, and you hope this is clear in your outcomes. Your data is not meant to convince others of your effectiveness. Rather, your data is to give you a deeper understanding of the impact of the action that you took. There are two broad categories of data: quantitative and qualitative. Each type has its own strengths and weaknesses, and you need to consider which is the most appropriate type to collect for what you want to know. Quantitative data tends to rely on hard numbers and numerical values, whereas qualitative data tends to rely more on words rather than numbers. Because the easiest data to collect in this context comes from observation, action research tends to rely a lot on qualitative data, with the words we use to describe our observations. Two important concepts to keep in mind are validity and reliability. Validity refers to the essential truthfulness of a piece of data. That is, we want to ask ourselves, does the data actually measure or reflect what it claims to? Does it prove what I say it proves? If it answers yes to these questions, then it is more valid. Reliability relates to researchers' claims regarding the accuracy of their data. That is, we want to ask ourselves, is this information an accurate representation of reality? One way to increase the validity and reliability of our data is through triangulation. Due to the amount of qualitative data, some may ask whether our results are believable. We need to strengthen our data and make sure to be objective in collecting information. One key way to do this, which has been widely adopted in research requiring reflection and interpretation, is through triangulation. This is where we use different types of measurements to make sure things are more accurate. So we're approaching it all from different angles. This usually means collecting more than one type of data. It doesn't necessarily mean three types, although the term triangulation seems to suggest this. Then you can compare and contrast and cross-check to see whether you are finding through one source is backed up by other evidence. In this way, you can be more confident that your reflections and conclusions are supported by the data and not just by your own presuppositions or biases. Using one set of data collected in one way often does not provide enough evidence about the impact of teaching. In order to give you greater confidence about your findings, enhance the credibility of a finding, or ensure a more accurate assessment of a finding, data should be collected in two or more different ways and/or from two or more different sources. Collecting data in these ways and then putting them together in order to test or validate findings is known as triangulation. If you use two or more sources of data that have similar results, you can have more confidence in the results, although you still need to be cautious about attributing causation. When different methods or sources come up with quite different results, further data collection and analysis are needed to understand what happened and in order to clarify what is happening. According to Ann Burns, triangulation has a number of advantages. Not only does it provide a more balanced picture, it can also help explain things that seem to contradict or do not support each other. It also allows us to get a rounded perspective from all people involved, the students, other teachers, school administrators, parents, rather than relying on a limited set of informers. So let's talk about some of the different collection tools as they relate to different types of observations. So first we think about the observable and things that you can see happening in your classroom and things that you need to see. This you could do observation. So you could observe a whole lesson or part of a lesson, either on your own or with a partner. You could take brief notes or record comments during the class. You can also take audio or video recordings of classroom interactions for analysis. Transcripts of these interactions are also very useful. You can think about whether it's between student to student or between teacher to student. However, not everything is directly observable, so we need to think about other things, not just what you need to see, but what you need to know. Sources for this include interviews, class discussions or a focus group of students, the use of questionnaires or surveys, diaries and journals, both from the teacher and the students, and other classroom documents, such as student writing samples, materials, speaking tests, any kind of assessments, portfolios, or self-evaluations. Let's think about the example we looked at in the previous part, in part 1. Which of these might a teacher use to determine whether students are understanding the reading passages better? Looking over the sample tools in the observable column, I don't see any that will help collect the kind of data the teacher is looking for. Moving to the non-observable column, I see that a questionnaire or survey will at least provide me information on whether the students perceive their comprehension is improving. The teacher could also use periodic quizzes or short answer assignments in class. So let's look back at how this relates to that last column, 3.1. So the teacher wants to know if students will begin to understand reading passages better. We could use surveys and questionnaires and quizzes. If we want to know if students are improving their independent reading skills, we can use observation and a teacher's journal. Looking at statement number 4, that we want the students to rely on themselves more and less on each other. Data we might be able to collect that would show us if we're successful would include journal entries, taking notes on who students go to for help, individual interviews with students, and a checklist for students on the reading strategies that they're using. And for the 5th one, that they truly understand the content of the passage, we could use assessments measuring comprehension and student written reflections to collect data and decide if we were successful in this or not. You may already be questioning some of these methods, which is good.